Hey, it's Paul Omahony here, and today I'm going to address the question, why do I find life such a struggle? Okay, if you find that this video is really resonating with you and you'd like to go into this in more depth, feel free to go to rethinktimemanagement.com, where I talk about this concept in a lot more depth and a lot more detail. So, the second half of the question, why do I find life such a struggle, is usually, and other people don't seem to have the same struggle as me. Right? And that's quite often important as part of this, because it's difficult for some people to define life as a struggle unless they're comparing it to somebody else who seem like they're just in flow and just life seems to always happen nice and easily for them. Because if everybody found life as a struggle the way most people do, then you would just think it's normal and you wouldn't think it's a struggle, you would just think that's life. But it's defined by you comparing yourself to somebody else, where you see them, as I just said, finding themselves in flow. Now, how is that the case, and how can we find our way out of that? Well, this is what I find is the main issue here, is that it goes back to our schooling and back to the type of schooling that we received, that we were never educated on the fact that as an individual, as a human being, we all have different values. We all view the world differently. We all think of things in different ways. We see things in different ways. But we're not actually quite aware of that, or certainly never taught that. And this is what can very much lead to the difference between somebody who's finding life a real struggle versus somebody that finds it's not that challenging whatsoever. Now, so what does that mean? Well, to make it kind of simple for the sake of this video, let's talk about it in terms of 8 different buckets. Let's talk about your life and kind of dividing it into 8 different sections. First being physical health, then finances, then spirituality, then social life. Okay, so physical, financial, spiritual, social, then mental knowledge, then vocation or business, okay, or career. Then we have family, and then we have fun. Okay, so physical, financial, spiritual, social, mental, vocational, family, and fun. Now let's look at these 8 areas. And let's talk about how through a lifetime, people will naturally tend to have a different priority in terms of these areas depending on their age. So when you're a teenager, fun and social are right up the top. This is something that you really want to put most of your time and energy and focus into. Then in your 20s, it becomes about getting a job and a career and getting into vocation. Then in your 30s, it becomes about family. In your 40s, for men and women, and actually for the first decade, it's different for them. Now, we can only speak in terms of general terms here, but in many cases, men in their 40s start to chase their youth and physical appearance when they were younger, so physical becomes a higher value. For example, the men that have just reached their 40s that haven't walked in 10 years suddenly start running marathons or suddenly start doing triathlons. And at the same time, women in their 40s, mental knowledge starts to become a higher priority, because in many cases they've been rearing a child or children and they've just suddenly realized, what happened to that beautiful angel that I brought onto the planet? It's time for me to express myself again. It's time for me to get re-engaged. It's time to use my brain again. And that becomes a huge void and tends to be their highest value in their 40s. In their 50s, men and women start to come back again together with similar values, being money and lack of being a priority, because now the children have moved out and their priorities change. It's not about getting rid of the kids anymore. It's about how do we downsize, or how do we cope with the impending drop in income that we're going to have when we're forced to retire, or if we have to close our business, or whatever that is. Then in our 60s, spiritual becomes definitely a bigger focus. Right? Because obviously people that friends that you've grown up with, family members, unfortunately, are naturally going to pass on over time. And that makes you look at your own mortality and makes you start to think about what's coming next, how do I prepare for what's coming next. And then in our 70s, in many cases, it all becomes about family again, because if we can't afford to support ourselves and what the government are paying us isn't enough, or our health isn't up to scratch, we need to go back to our family, and they tend to have to look after us at that point. Okay, so this journey is kind of interesting in that as people arrive in each zone, they kind of act surprised. It's like they never saw it coming. When you can predict with certainty that that's the majority of what people will go through, is exactly that sequence of events. So where does this fit into life struggle? Well, here's the thing. If you are focusing on a day-to-day basis or working on a day-to-day basis in a job which isn't aligned with whatever your higher values are, you're always going to feel at dis-ease with yourself, which of course leads to dis-ease. It leads to stress. Right? Look at the top 4 killers of humanity. Right? It's number 1 is mistakes that happen in medical environments, by professionals in hospitals. Why? Because they're stressed, they're overworked. Number 2, heart disease, which is caused by a buildup of plaque, which is due to stress. Number 3, cancer. Again, due in many cases to stress over a lifetime, right? So how do we figure out and to become at ease with ourselves rather than at dis-ease? We need to figure out, you've got 2 options, right? First of all, you need to work out what are your values. What are the things that you love to do? What are you inspired to do? What comes from within? What will you do naturally without anybody asking you to do? What are you organized in and disciplined in? What would you jump out of bed in the morning to do? What would you stay up all night to do? Where time and space just seem to disappear and you're just in that zone and you feel like you're on vision, on focus, on mission. You're doing what you're born to do. Well, how do you figure that out? Well, ask yourself, where do I put most of my energy? Where do I put my focus? Where do I like to spend my time? What do I think about constantly? What am I grateful for? Right? What kind of pictures do I surround myself with? What do I like to remind myself about all the time? Where do I spend most of my money? They're going to give you really good clues as to what it is you value the most at this point in your life. And then you may find that on your day-to-day basis that you could be in a role or in a job where it doesn't quite fit in line with that. So you're doing this at work to get paid, but you're doing it because you want to be able to fund whatever it is that you truly want to do. And this leads to this inner turmoil of, I just find everything a struggle. Nothing seems to be in flow. Everything seems to be out of whack. It's because you don't feel that what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is in line with the things that you value the most. So the 2 ways that you can adjust that. So first of all, if you figured out what it is and you go through that process, and remember, I go into this in more detail in rethinktimemanagement.com, and feel free to go in there where I have exercises for you to do step by step. I just want to give you the generic overview here. So you go through what it is that you want to spending your time on, what is it that you value the most. Then the 2 things that you need to do is, the first option is you can realign your values so that you can feel that what it is that you're doing currently is actually in line with where you want to achieve. Right, so let's think about that for a moment. Right, you're working in your job right now. You might feel that that's exactly the opposite of what you want to do. So life feels like a struggle. You don't have enough money coming in to fund whatever it is you want to do. So you could actually do an exercise where you write out 100 reasons why the job that you're currently doing is actually going to help you become more fulfilled as a human being faster. Okay, so let's say, for example, let's just take a specific example. You want to be an entrepreneur. You want to run this online business of yours, but you're in your job every day, spending 8 to 9 hours on something that you feel is taken from what you truly want to do, and it's to create this business around something you're passionate about. Okay? Well, why don't you write out 100 reasons why the job that I'm in right now can actually allow me to be more successful and set up my business faster than if I didn't have it. So this is a completely different way of thinking about things. Right? So for example, it gives me the money to take care of my bills so that I can build this business on the side. Number 2, it takes the stress away from friends and family putting pressure on me if I decide to leave my job, that they'll say, well, where's your money going to come from? So it allows me to build this again on the side with the pressure being taken off me. It allows me to fund my ad campaigns that I wouldn't be able to do if I cut off my source of income. Okay? So if you go through this process, you'll actually realize that what you're doing in work is in line with what you want to do. And then you end up becoming more productive in your work environment, and you actually could well be offered a promotion, or you'll look for opportunities within your role on a day-to-day basis that can even facilitate more that overall thing that you'd like to focus on right now. The other alternative is, so that's one, is that where you specifically look at what you're doing. This is the one I actually recommend, it's my preference, is look at what you're doing now and connect it to that higher value. The other option is you just stop what you're doing now and you start to put all of your time and effort and focus into this specific area that you just love to do. Right now, that can end up though with short-term pain because it may mean that you're cutting off an income source, right? And it just may mean that you're taking risks that are quite unnecessary. But that is the other alternative, is that you just say, right, I'm done with this and I'm going to 100% throw myself into this because life's too short. I just want to focus on what I love, and ultimately my vocation will become my vacation. That's a much higher risk strategy. If you do have funds set aside and you are able to fund that, you absolutely can. But as I said, my preference would be, if you want to get in flow, is figure out what you're doing already on a day-to-day basis, be it at work, be it with your children, be it with your partner, be it with your exercise and your fitness, all of those things. Figure out how what you're doing there right now actually supports you in getting towards your higher values, so that you realize that nothing is actually in your way, it's on the way. Okay, and if you actually then look at the people who you kind of look up to and admire, and it seems like everything is easy for them, look at and ask them, what are their specific values? What do they value the most? And pretty much 100% of the time, you'll be able to see that they seem in flow because they're spending their time, their hours, their day, their focus, their money on those things that they value the most. So life just seems to flow for them because they're working towards their highest value. And when you're on focus, on mission, on vision, and you have clarity on that, everything seems to just work, happen as a coincidence. Everything seems to line up perfectly. And some people call that luck. But for me, there's no luck involved there. It's about having a clear plan, a clear understanding of who you are, why you are here, what impact you want to make, and aligning your day and your priorities to maximize the results that you can get on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so it starts with you. It starts with you doing an assessment on what your values are, and then realigning what you do on a day-to-day basis with those values, and see how they're in the way, not on the way, or should I say on the way, not in the way. And the other alternative is, if you do have funds to support you to just jump and go straight into whatever it is that you'd love to do, you can look at that. But it's a riskier strategy as far as I'm concerned, and the other one will work better. Now, if there's somebody in your life that could benefit from this video, please feel free to tag them in or share this video. Please like, and please share your comments below also. I'd love to see what you think on this particular topic. I'll see you soon.